What's your reaction to the incident that happened at the home that your husband owns?
Boston police are investigating the discovery of a body at a Mattapan property owned by the husband of Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley.
Property records show this is a two-family home with the current owner listed as Conan Harris.
Do you remember that courthouse deal that I told you about last week? The one where the state of Massachusetts is basically about to make a congresswoman's husband your landlord? Well, guess what happened? We have an update. I have an update on this, and somehow, some way, it only got worse.
So now the guys with the losing bid are crying foul, and they hired one of the country's toughest law firms to file a lawsuit. And among all this fishy stuff, the law firm thought there was enough involvement by Ayanna Pressley herself to request communications between her husband and her offices.
$2 billion. 40 years could reach to 60, and at the end of it, the state of Massachusetts doesn't own the building. So who does? Who's the landlord? A company co-owned by Conan Harris, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley's husband. If you're here from my last video a couple months ago, you already know this business went from a city paycheck to 7 figures right after she took office. Now his name is on the winning side of the biggest lease this state has signed in years. Coincidence?
Two guys who lost their bid, they marched into the Hampden County Superior Court and they swore out a complaint under oath asking a judge to throw out the winning bid and force a do-over. This isn't some kind of frivolous lawsuit.
Obviously, nobody has been convicted of anything yet. Nobody's even been charged, but the paperwork looks a little off. It has some questions it needs to answer. Let's get into it. But before we get into the money, let's talk about the situation that happened a couple of days ago. A body was found in one of the homes owned by Ayanna Pressley's husband. Absolutely insane.
Boston police are investigating the discovery of a body at a Mattapan property owned by the husband of Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley.
Friends and family are identifying an 8-year-old woman found dead from a gunshot wound in a Mattapan home.
We talked to neighbors who were surprised to see this unfold on their street.
We got home and there were police coming down the street. They'd blocked off like crime tape over there. And neighbors gathered around. Yeah, I mean, it's sad. It's really sad. This neighborhood is a wonderful place to be.
Family and friends held a vigil last night for the victim. They say she was just 18 years old. Police have not released the victim's name.
She was pronounced dead right there in that house, 18 years old. Her friends and family held a vigil for her that Saturday night. Candles are still burning on the sidewalk the next morning when reporters showed up. It's a two-family rental. They don't live there. It's currently on the market for $1.15 million.
What's your reaction to the incident that happened at the home that your husband owns? There was a death there and reported in the local news. I was wondering what you know about it and what's your reaction?
Well, as the mother to an 18-year-old daughter, right now excitedly planning to take her to college for her freshman year. My heart is very heavy. I'm devastated for the impacted family. This young girl who we didn't know, 18 years old, sure had her own plans and dreams that have all been cut short. And as someone who has done the work advocating, for accountability and healing for survivors of all crimes, my heart is heavy, and I'm just really centering the victim right now, and that's what we all should be doing.
Do you have any? Ayanna Pressley says that neither her family had anything to do with what happened. Just looks really, really terrible. Obviously, she was killed violently. She had plans. I'm sure she had a whole life in front of her, but we'll follow it as it develops. Rest in peace to her. But let's go into the main point of this video, talking about this $2 billion. So Springfield needs a new courthouse. That's not a dispute. So the old one is a mess with a whole bunch of mold and health complaints, all types of things. And the governor herself called it a sick building. So nobody's arguing that the city should be working on that. But here's how the state decided to fix it. Instead of building a courthouse and owning it like a normal government, Massachusetts decided to rent one. A private team builds it, the state signs a lease, and the state will pay the rent for 40 years with a 2 10-year extensions built in. So it could stretch to 60 years. The build itself is about $600 million, but the rent over the life of this lease, nearly $2 billion of taxpayer money. And at the end of it, taxpayers don't own the building. So think about it. You pay a mortgage for 40 years, and on the last day, the bank hands you a broom and says, thanks, now get out. The landlord keeps the house. Now, the state says that this was the cheapest and fastest option out of the 10 proposals. And maybe that's true, but when the receipt says $2 billion and the state ends up with nothing to show for it, I think we're allowed to ask some questions, like, who's the landlord? The winning team is called Liberty Junction. Inside sits a company called Coljo. Coljo has two partners. One partner is Ayanna Pressley's husband. If you check my last video, this guy was an ex-con. His consulting income went from city salary to 7 figures after she took office. Now his company is on a $2 billion state lease. But let's talk about the second partner by the name of John Barros. And Barros is where the paperwork gets very interesting, because on January 14th of this year, right in the middle of the bidding, Barros took a job running a state agency, the Massachusetts Convention Center Authority. Now, one of the men bidding for state money is also cashing a state paycheck. The guy is wearing 2 different hats on the same head. Now, follow this with me, because this is where the whole ball game gets explained. The agency that picked the winner is called DCAMM. John runs the Convention Center Authority. Several people who sit on John's board also sits on DCAMM's board. Same faces, different rooms. And the state finance secretary who oversees DCAMM, he also sits on that board too. That's not a coincidence you shrug at. That's a small circle of people who all know each other, and one of them is on the team taking home the prize. Now notice the timing. John Barros filed his ethics disclosure the day before the award came down in July, not in January, where he took the state job.
This is a conflict of interest that's required by law to be reported and flagged, but mysteriously, no one evaluating the bids ran that one up the flagpole. And this guy Barros with the fancy job with the state, he never bothered to file that disclosure until after he learned that they won the bid. So now the guys with the losing bid are crying foul, and they hired one of the country's toughest law firms to file a lawsuit. And among all this fishy stuff, the law firm thought there was enough involvement by Ayanna Pressley herself to request communications between her husband and her offices. All communications. Did Ayanna think no one would ever see this and no one would ever ask questions? Probably not, because this isn't the first government money that her ex-con husband has gotten his hands on.
Okay? I know that the state is out here patting themselves on the back because they picked the lowest bid. They picked the perceivable cheapest bid. But the lawsuit says that the cheapest bid was never even supposed to be in the room in the first place. And Massachusetts has a conflict of interest law. And the lawsuit alleges this guy never ended up filing the disclosure paperwork that the law requires.
His attorney said that he checked with the Ethics Commission before he even started, followed their instructions the whole way, and that Barros is just a passive investor with no decision-making power. Okay, sure, but the lawsuit says that the bid paperwork was never updated to show that he became a state official at all. On his state financial disclosure form, Barros didn't list Coljo. No ownership, no office, but the state's own incorporation records list him as the manager of it. So the 2 developers who lost, they filed a lawsuit January 9th in Hampden County. Rivals who fought each other for this thing now are standing side by side. They want a judge to vacate the award before the lease gets signed. So we're going to see what's going on here. I mean, at this point, nothing has been necessarily proven. Obviously, Presley herself is not a defendant. She's not accused of anything. And there's no evidence that she's anywhere near this bid. I still think that there's always some level of connections there, because, again, it's highly unlikely a man that came from jail all of a sudden is able to attach himself to a $2 billion development. I mean, unless the guy made a bunch of rap records, which I don't think he did, it's a little fishy. A lot of men come home from 10 years in prison and never got anywhere near a room like that. You could draw your own conclusions. So we'll see what happens with this lawsuit and if this gets any traction. And we'll see what's going on with that murder that was found, with that woman that was found in one of Harris's properties. We'll follow all that and more. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Do you believe that there's connections here, even with the Congresswoman? Do you think there's some connections that we haven't found yet? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you for taking time to watch this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.